Hey guys, what's up? My name is Sean from DaltonStills.com, and today I'm going to be chatting a little bit about my gear and what lens you should purchase for your first prime lens. I have a few recommendations and I can't wait to talk about those. But before we get into the video, guys, please subscribe, leave a comment, and give me a like, give me a thumbs up. It's so helpful for me. I'm just starting out my channel, and everything you guys contribute in terms of engagement and content is really helpful for me. So with that said, let's get started. So a lot of people on Instagram ask me about what lenses that I use, on a daily basis. I get the question all the time. And on my Instagram, I shoot kind of like this coffee cafe theme kind of thing. And my main lens is an 85mm f1.4. And I shoot that on my Sony a7R II, which is Sony's kind of flagship mirrorless camera, or at least it was until the A9 came out. But this thing's a beast, really high megapixels. The focusing speed is great, but I want to focus more on the lens. The lens is the 85mm f1.4, and the reason why I like it so much for these coffee and cafe style photos is because I can get nice and close up to the object, and really, get a lot of detail in there. So I can stop down to, f2.8, f4, f5.6, and I get a lot of really nice sharpness across the whole frame. But I don't know if you've seen my Instagram, but I do like to step back from my subject and take photos a little bit back, and I shoot it at 1.4, so I get that really nice bokeh, and that lens allows me to do that because it's 1.4. This thing's a bokeh god. I mean, it's amazing. So pretty much every photo you see on my Instagram have been shot with the 85mm f1.4 at various apertures, but I'd say most of the time f1.4 or f2.0. The second lens that I use is a 55mm f1.8 by Zeiss, and it's also great. This is just kind of like an all-around great lens that I use all the time. It's super fast, it's really sharp, it's got great contrast. This is the first lens that I have with this camera. I do think this is a really good starter lens for those of you that are going to invest in your first prime lens, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And the third lens I use a lot for things like fashion or street photography, or sometimes even interiors, is the 35mm f1.4. And I love this lens so much. It's made by Zeiss. I really like Zeiss lenses. They're just super high quality. So I use this a lot. I don't use this so much for cafe photography. That's because my style is very much, I like longer focal lengths. I like a lot of bokeh. And while this does a lot of bokeh, at 35mm, you do see a little bit more distortion in your lens than an 85mm. That's why an 85mm lens is more of a portrait lens. But a portrait or food lens. Okay, and now I want to chat about what lens you should buy for your first prime lens. I have posted my other blog posts before. I do believe that having an 18 to 55mm kit lens is the best place to start in the beginning, right? So you're gonna have that once you buy your first DSLR, you're gonna have your kit lens with it, shoot with that. That's a great place to start. You're gonna learn what focal lengths you like to shoot at. You're gonna learn if you like to shoot wide, or if you like to shoot at heavier focal lengths. That's just a great starter lens for learning photography, so I do recommend that. But once you do outgrow that, you're gonna wanna step it up. You're gonna buy a nicer lens. And when you buy a nicer lens, you're gonna purchase a prime lens. A prime lens is just like all the lenses I just showed you. It's a fixed focal length lens, and it does not zoom, but what's great about it is that it has a wide maximum aperture. That means the lens can open up nice and wide, let in a lot of light, so it's good for low light, and also can help you get some really, really beautiful bokeh that can really set your images apart. With that said, when you do buy your first prime lens, it can get a bit complicated, especially if you're shooting on a crop sensor camera. Crop sensor cameras you multiply the zoom by 1.5. So if you're shooting on a Canon EOS Rebel or a Nikon D3300 or a D5000, I believe those are both crop sensors, you're gonna have to multiply your focal length by 1.5. So what does that mean? That means that if you're using an 18mm lens multiplied by 1.5, that's about 36mm. An 18mm lens is equivalent to 35mm on a full frame. A 35mm lens is equivalent to a 50mm lens on a full frame. And a 50mm lens is equivalent to about a 75mm lens on a full frame. So I know that can be a bit complicated. If you're shooting on a full frame camera, you don't have to multiply anything. A lens is a lens. So when I'm shooting with mine, because my camera is full frame, that's a full frame camera. The sensor inside is nice and big, 35mm frame. Crop sensors, that's smaller, so you gotta do the multiplication there. So when it comes to purchasing your first prime lens, there's 3 lenses I would recommend. And I'm going to be talking in full frame equivalents here. 35mm, 50mm, and 85mm. Those are the 3 lenses that I would recommend. You can purchase any of those 3, and that's a great place to start. However, I would recommend the 50mm over the other 2. And the reason for that is because it's just a nice middle ground. 35mm is nice and wide. You know, you can shoot street, you can shoot a lot of different things. It's definitely the most versatile of the 3. It's really good for things like fashion and stuff like that. You can even shoot portraits with it. I mean, it's not the best for portraits, but you can do it. The 50mm, on the other hand, is great for portraits. You know, you can still shoot beautiful, beautiful street photos. It just has a more artistic look. In my opinion, it has a more artistic look. Gives you a little bit more depth of field, a little bit shallower of a depth of field. And it's still fairly versatile. I mean, I think 50mm was the lens that I really fell in love with first. And I think that it's really suitable for pretty much anything. In regards to 75mm or 85mm, you're kind of limiting yourself with a lens like that. I know that I shoot all of my Instagram photos at 85mm, but guys, I shoot other things too. You know, I don't just shoot for Instagram. You know, I do weddings, I do portraits and stuff like that, where I do fashion where I want to use a 35. I use the 55 a lot too, and I'm shooting couples and stuff like that. So I use all 3 lenses quite a bit. For Instagram, I use the 85. But for your first prime lens, you're just gonna be making one purchase. I would definitely recommend a 50mm lens. If you're shooting out a crop sensor, remember you're gonna be shopping for a 35mm lens, because once you multiply that by 1.5, it's gonna equal 50mm. I'm gonna put in the description down below some of the lenses that I think would be a really good purchase for you, for both crop sensor and full frame camera. So if you're shooting on a crop sensor, there'll be a section for you. If you're shooting on a full frame, you can check out a different section. But with that said, guys, I love prime lenses. They really help me set myself apart in the photography world. They taught me so much about depth of field and how to zoom with my feet and how to compose a composition and stuff like that. And I definitely recommend purchasing a prime lens if you haven't before. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't checked it out yet, please check out my course on cafe photography. I take you through one of my full shoots. I'll show you some images. I'll show you how I edit them. I'll show you kind of everything across the board. It's on Skillshare.com, and you get 2 months for free, I think, if you sign up through my link. Then it's like $10 a month after that, and then you get access to like over 15,000 courses. I mean, it's amazing. It's a really, really good service, so I highly recommend checking that out. If you're not into that, please subscribe and check out some of my other videos. And with that said, guys, I will definitely see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.